I'm gonna get us recorded. Perfect. All right. I'm gonna do a little quick introduction, and then if there's anything else you want to add, feel free to add, Josh.
Cool. I'll just go ahead and mute myself, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody, welcome. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're doing well. And today we have a guest. I hope you can hear me. If you cannot hear me well, please feel free to put it in the chat, even when you can't hear Josh for whatever reason. We want to make sure you hear everything. So Josh is a published writer and a poet, and in 2009 organized the Seattle Poetry Slam, a collective focused on addressing the city's poverty, inequality, and social justice issues through arts. Furthering arts as a means of liberation, he volunteered with King County Juvenile Detention Center, mentoring youth through poetry and the arts. Josh speaks Moroccan Arabic, intermediate level, which I think is pretty good to speak intermediate level Moroccan Arabic. Loves to travel, participates in grassroots activism, which if you're not sure what grassroots activism is, that's also a good question to ask later. And then UW football, hiking, and a good cup of coffee. So that we have in common when it comes to coffee. Josh, is there anything else you want to add that scholars know from the get-go?
No, I think that's, really good information right there.
Perfect. Just to take a deep breather, we're just going to get started with some questions, and then scholars, feel free to ask questions at any point. And what we'll do is we'll try to kind of bring in those questions through our conversation as relevant, but also ask them at the end to make sure all the questions are being asked by scholars. And to get us started, it's been a really long couple of years. I think that's probably understatement given COVID and also the social justice uprising. Just curious to learn a little bit more about where's your mind at, and how are you doing? What are some reflections you've had during this time?
Yeah, no, it really has been, like you were saying, challenging times, I think, throughout these recent years since 2020. I think for me, so I was in Atlanta when George Floyd was murdered, Breonna Taylor was murdered, along with Ahmaud Arbery and Rashad Brooks. So I just got heavily involved in kind of organizing and demonstrating and aligning myself with like-minded people to be able to build community and to go out there and just to stand up for what I believe in, which in turn ultimately led me to being able to have an opportunity to spend all of last year working with the Carter Center, which is Jimmy Carter's presidential library. I was able to be a graduate assistant with the Human Rights Program and be able to develop a social justice through the arts initiative, where I bring in different types of artists to be able to discuss how they use their art form to advocate for social justice. So for me, it felt like at times I can't do anything, right? There's just so many systemic issues across the board in this country, and just amplified by the pandemic, exacerbated by the just different disparities. I just, looked within to see what can I do, and this social justice through the arts avenue really enabled me to be able to feel like I am contributing, right? If it is just a conversation with different people, at least we're engaging in dialogue that can hopefully inspire others to take action within their own lives, so that we can together fight for social justice issues across the board.
Thank you, Jess, for sharing that. As you were sharing that, it made me think a little bit about maybe it's a follow-up question to think for scholars. There's many ways to make change, and we see that right now, in our face, really, and everywhere. Just curious your thoughts about what are some of the ways you feel like people can make changes, because this could be hard, right? Especially if you are of a person of the global majority and experiencing the things that we're experiencing in the media, especially amplified.
Yeah. I think that's really a personal journey, right? I think it's trying to kind of look inward to see, what changes can you make? What capacities do you have to make changes within the communities that you identify with? And just, being intentional. I think making intentional actions each and every day, being minoritized. That's one thing I want to talk on too, is I was talking with a scholar the other day, and I referred to myself as a minority, and she's like, no, you're minoritized, right? We're not minorities. We've just been told that we are, and it's no, we're a minoritized individuals. So that's one thing to definitely keep in mind too. But I think change comes within, right? So the change you seek definitely comes within, and it's just really, going on a personal journey in a sense to better understand what that looks like. And then just like I was saying, being intentional about that and continuing, to seek that out. And no matter what, no matter what comes your way, is just each and every day compound interest over time to be able to, knock down barriers so that that change that you desire can happen. A lot of people will tell you what you can't do, but it's just extremely important to always know that you can. And that when things get hard, that's life asking you, how bad do you want to, work to achieve something? Knowing that, it might be harder, knowing that there is historical oppression that makes it harder for people that look like you or I to go out there and be successful. You can be that bricklayer so that others don't have to struggle as much as you did, and so that we can live in an equitable society. It's just a matter of how bad do you want that change.
Yeah, someone said it like if you're working to make change, you're planting seeds. Sometimes you might not even see grow out into whatever the thing is, right? But you are creating something for the future generation to experience something better, right? So you might not see the fruit of your labor now, but if you're putting in labor, there will be some fruits to be had, right? Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. I normally don't ask that follow-up, but just it came as a conversation, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it.
No, that was a great question.
And scholars are probably like, oh yeah, like, you gotta start deep right away in the morning.
Got you.
Oh man, so I appreciate it. I'm gonna kind of take us on a little journey to get started with your kind of childhood and your experience in middle school, high school. So start with like middle school, because we have middle schoolers and high schoolers in our school. Just curious, like, what was middle school like for you? What are some of the ways in which you felt successful? What are some of the ways in which you felt like you struggled? And like, what did you do about it?
Yeah, that was middle school. Was a while ago. I'm 32 now. So that's, I think, the biggest thing for me. So I grew up in the Linwood Mountain Lake Terrace area. I'm biracial, but I do consider myself a Black male. I think my biggest struggle was like not necessarily feeling like I belonged, because the community that I went to school with didn't look like me. So that was really hard, just knowing, who I am. And I think in general, when you're young, in middle school, high school age, it's just identity is a huge thing, right? Wanting to figure out how I fit in, trying to understand like my space and my communities. And so what I think, to reflect back on that, I wish I would have pursued my interests that I now pursue, right? Like I was an athlete growing up. I played basketball. I was decent at it, and I was just known as that. But at the same time, I've always loved the arts, right? I was a decent musician when I was younger, but I gave that up because it wasn't cool, and I wanted to just go out there and play basketball, and thought that that was all I could be good at. And so now that I'm older, it's like, I fully immerse myself in the things that I'm passionate about. People are going to say what they want to say about me, but I'm now comfortable in my own skin and don't necessarily, I don't believe what people say about me, because I know who I am. And so that's just a process, right? I would encourage, every student to really take the time to, explore things that you enjoy, that fill you, that excite you, that's something that you want to do. And if your friends are discouraging you and saying that that's not cool, this or that they might not be your friends. Your friends are going to amplify you and build you up and encourage you to continue to pursue those interests. So I'd really just say, when you're young, do everything that you want to do that brings you joy, and just see where it can take you. And, don't let people tell you what you shouldn't do. Figure out, what you can do, and just continue to explore yourself and understanding who you are.
I appreciate that, Josh. Josh, we have a music teacher in our school, Mr. Barry. Mr. Barry is saying, music teacher here. Why wasn't music cool during your middle school experience?
I think it wasn't that it wasn't cool. It's that I was just it wasn't with the other basketball players, you know, that I was the sports and this that community, that culture was into. So it was more so that I allowed myself to allowed others to tell me how I should think and how I should act, and I didn't follow my heart and what I enjoyed. And so it's always been cool. Like music has always been cool. It's more that I was influenced to believe that, you know, these people don't think it's cool. So yeah, to answer your question, it is other people told me it wasn't cool, and so I believed it when I knew all along it was. And so I should have listened to myself and not what other people said.
Absolutely. And one of our anonymous attendees asked, was it peer pressure? And it sounds
Yeah,
like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would
it
say it was
was.
absolutely, you know, peer pressure. And that takes time to grow out of, you know, and to like to not give into that for sure. And that gets back to just knowing who you are, living your truth, and really, you know, believing in your values, your values.
Absolutely. And like you said, Josh, that stuff takes time and it's
Yeah,
not something you just achieve, right?
yeah,
And you did the work to get there.
yeah, yeah,
And like what sounded like a good advice to me from what you said, Josh, is like you find yourself liking something, and sometimes you'll see maybe people who are your friends not liking it or making fun of you for it or whatever it might be. And maybe that's the time to question and see if you and your friends, who you call your friends, are like aligned. You know, you are on the same page. You
absolutely.
want to be hanging out together because you like similar things. So maybe
Yeah,
it's finding some group of people that like the thing that you like, right?
absolutely.
That could
Yeah.
be your friends as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Don't silo yourself into one like friend group. Definitely have just a conglomerate, you know, of different types of friends and different types of people. That's only gonna help you grow and be a more full individual and just have this greater perspective and understanding of this life and what it means to be, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's another follow-up question, I think maybe related. Did you stereotype, I think, yourself?
Um, in hindsight, yeah, absolutely. So it's one thing that I like haven't been asked enough, it will come up, but when I was throughout my remedial education, I was on an IEP plan, individual education plan. I believed I was an intellectually not capable. And so I stereotyped myself in that, like to not believe in my intellectual abilities and to only believe that I was good at athletics, right? And that I couldn't really be good at other things. And so I believe those stereotypes that were just reinforced over time, telling me that, you know, you're a really good athlete, and then just always struggling with just, you know, kind of reading. I haven't always been the best at like reading, and then like kind of being shy to read in front of a class because I literally just wouldn't know what a word was, and being afraid that people might laugh at me. When it came to grammar and spelling, being afraid to let other people read my work in writing. But then over time, like the beauty about my personal journey is that, you know, I went to a community college and worked my way all the way up to a master's degree, and now I believe in myself. Like I know intellectually I am capable to achieve anything, and it's just a matter of taking that time and knowing that you can. And you just have to really, really work at it. It's not a learning disability. It's just that you learn differently. That's all it is. And you are capable. It's just a matter of putting the work in to understand how you best learn.
Oh man, yeah, that's incredible. I appreciate you saying that because I think like um, that's so easy to like internalize and feel that you, for some reason, something is wrong with you when it isn't the case at all. You just learn
Right.
differently, and the systems in place have not adapted to your learning needs, and they need to do so. And it's like you keep working on it, you'll be where you are, Josh. I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that. I want to move on to high school, and I think maybe if there's anything else, like what was high school like? Similar, like what were some of your
Yeah.
successes and struggles in high school after middle school?
Yeah. High school is fine. I mean, at that point I was, you know, playing on the varsity basketball team where we were really good. There was more diversity. I mean, I went to a predominantly white school, but like the basketball team, you think that we were like Rainier Beach or like Garfield or Franklin, you know, like a bunch of brothers out there hooping, and like we're nice. So it was cool. But I think at that same time, like that just put me more into like just the basketball culture, right? And just what that looked like and the dress and talk, and not really exploring my own interests. I think I was easily influenced. I think I was peer pressured at times. I wish I would have gotten more involved into, the arts, which I truly love. I write poetry on the side. I love going to art museums. So high school was, a challenging time. You're growing in all these different ways, all these different hormones running through you. College, honestly, was never in my mind. I never thought I was going to go to college. Neither one of my parents went to college. My dad stopped going to school at a really young age to help provide for his family. He's been illiterate most of his life. My mother did a semester of college, and so I didn't really know, what was next for me. There's a lot of uncertainty after the fact, and then, just went on this journey now. But I think high school, in hindsight, it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was 4 years that I'm grateful for. They weren't my glory years and my golden years. I think those are continually unfolding, but it was definitely it's a unique time. I've changed a lot since then. You changed a lot. Yeah, a lot of growth has happened since, but I would say it like this, like just quickly, is that I was in a bubble and surrounded around certain types of people. And when you are around the same people over time, you kind of begin to could potentially have those same ideas and beliefs and things of that nature. And so after high school, I've been able to like just totally rupture those narratives, right? To be able to radically think different and step outside of the place where I grew up and to be able to widen that bubble, right? So like Mount Lake Terrace Thunder was all I knew. And then over time, just was able to grow and challenge these ideas and beliefs that I grew up in, and then be able to better understand who I am.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate your vulnerability. It's really like incredibly inspiring to think about how you didn't think of yourself as somebody who's going to go to college, right? And then to see you like get a bachelor's degree, so go to a 4-year college and then get a master's degree, and then really be into the arts and like have a role to play in the arts in the community. I think that's incredibly inspiring, and hopefully there's scholars here that are like, oh, interesting, maybe I still will pursue something that I'm interested in. And I'm curious, there's a question that was asked earlier related, like you mentioned about being into the arts. How did you get into the arts? Did you go to college for the arts? Like, what was your journey like in that?
No, I've never. I thought about getting a master's in fine arts and poetry, but I decided to go a different route. I think I've always been a writer. I think I've always enjoyed self-expression and exploration through writing. I could think back to being in like 5th grade and sitting with a friend and just like writing lyrics to like a random Star Wars song. And then actually my senior project, we had to do senior projects. I never even thought about this. I did my senior project on poetry and like visual aids. So I guess you could say I did spoken word pieces. I wrote spoken word poems, and then I went out throughout the community and just captured images and videos that aligned with that and produced that. And then just have continued to write poetry, found open mics to go to, and just continue to explore art that way. So I'm not self-taught, just to kind of figured it out over time.
That's incredible. And I think that also tells you that like you don't necessarily have to have a college degree or like, oh, this is what I studied somewhere in order to pursue it, or in order to be studying it on your own, right? Exploring on your own, creating with people. I think that's the beauty of the arts, that there's folks who don't pursue that route but are incredibly talented and create some amazing work.
No, I definitely would agree, for sure.
I'm curious, like kind of like along those lines, your career journey, like, why did you choose the career journey you've chosen so far? Did you always know that's what you wanted to do?
Yes. No, I mean, I was writing down some notes earlier, preparing for this talk, and I literally have I never had a plan, mainly ideas of who and how I wanted to be, you know? And so I think it's more, I've had ideas, you know? So after high school, it took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree from the University of Washington. I worked at Stevens Hospital, which is now Swedish Edmonds, for 8 years. I worked 6:30 to 3 o'clock. I eventually went to Edmonds Community College. And when you go to a community college, you have to take an AccuPlacer to see which college level classes you test into. And so I tested in the lowest level classes. I did 2 years of below college level classes until I was able to take college level classes. I spent 4 years there. And eventually transferred to the UW, got my degree from there. And afterwards, I did medical sales. Didn't enjoy that. I was very much financially stable, but I realized, and I knew, money doesn't bring you happiness. If your goal is to chase money, then you'll never have enough because you'll always want more. I think I learned that afterwards. Pause. I went on to go to the Peace Corps, right? I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Morocco. I lived 2 years in a really rural town in the High Atlas region, about 3.5 hours northeast of Marrakesh. And it was there that I realized, you know, what I'd like to do, which originally was international development. That's what I have my master's degree in. And it was just this journey of just like exploring. That's why I like always have like these different ideas of what I thought I wanted to do medical sales. I didn't enjoy it. Then I did Peace Corps. I had that amazing experience of being able to live abroad and just immerse myself in a culture that's drastically different than my own, to learn a language that's drastically different than my own, to be able to be around amazing people who are Americans that look different than me, that come from different parts of the world, have just contributed to me in my knowing and understanding. It was beautiful. And then to be able to know what I'd like to pursue a master's degree in, and then to pick Atlanta at the perfect time in hindsight, and to be able to be there during the racial reckoning, to be able to lead and organize protests, to be able to see certain things, to be able to walk the streets that John Lewis walked, that Dr. Martin Luther King walked, have solidified my duty, which I'm currently involved in with this social justice, right? That's who I am. I work at the UW. I also work for the Carter Center, and I do social justice work. And that's always who I've been, right? I've always been somebody who believes in equity. And I think it's just taking that time to just go on your own hero's journey, to explore, to explore ideas, to know that you don't always have to have a plan. The plan is to live your life and enjoy the ride, but to just, you know, be happy and to just be open and to know, you know, you can do whatever you want in this life. And to be able to now be at a point where each day I wake up and I can truly tell you I enjoy what I do. I think that is the ultimate goal, is to not just have a job be a job, but to truly be able to have had enough experiences and to follow enough ideas so that you can get to a point and you can say, today I get to get up and I get to do this because I truly enjoy it and I love it. That was a long tangent. I apologize.
No, that was not. That was incredible. I appreciate you sharing that. I am curious, like, were there points in which you were like, I don't know, this is me, or is this like, I don't know, I'm struggling. I don't know if this, like, do I want to do something different? Like, how did you navigate that?
Yeah. So the hardest part and the most important degree that I have is my associates from Edmonds Community College, because that was just the hardest time, right? I was in my early 20s when people were going out and having a great time and just being stereotypes. And here I was, you know, getting up at 5:30 every day and working 6:30 to 3 and going to school in the evening. And I'm like, is it worth it, right? Is it worth it? Not knowing what this was going to lead to. I remember I was 10 credits into the 90 credits to have my associates. And I was just talking to somebody at the time who was my current age. And I was like, man, should I do this? And he decided for me. He's like, he looks in my eyes and he says, if I can do this, so will you, you know? And so I knew that if I didn't do this, my reality would only be Mountain Lake Terrace and Linwood. And I would work at that hospital for the rest of my life. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It was a great job. There was great people, but I've always aspired for more, right? And I knew I wanted to go abroad. I knew I wanted to travel. And so it's just like, I came too far not to. And I think it gets back to what I said earlier. At times, life will ask you, how bad do you want it, right? And so that's what I had to go through in hindsight. I had to question myself to know that if it was really worth it. I had to put the work in to know that it was worth it. In doing so, and having, questioned myself throughout, I knew it was possible. I mean, Peace Corps was a really challenging time, like on a lot of different personal levels. I wanted to quit and give up. I mean, I was in Morocco for 27 months. You're gone from home for a while, but I just continued. I wanted to quit my master's program, but I knew it was worth it. And so it's just, once you know what your why is, like why you're doing something and what your purpose is, anything's possible. I think if you didn't question, it would be too easy, right? It's not hard enough. Like, you need to challenge yourself. You need to think at times you can't do it, and then you need to get to the end and be like, dang, I did it, right? Nelson Mandela said, if I've climbed one mountain, there's many more mountains to climb. It's like, you get to the top of one mountain and you look up and it's like, dang. But then you look back and you're like, look at all these mountains I've accomplished, right? And you keep on going and you say, yeehaw, I got it.
Because you're not tapping into your potential, right? If it's too easy, right? That means that there's more that you could do. There's more you could be.
Exactly.
That will make you proud of yourself, right?
If you want to be like a world-class sprinter, you don't go and just like train with people that are the same speed as you. You go find a bunch of cheetahs and learn to run as fast as them, in a sense, right? You go find people that are faster than you so that you know what it takes to get to that level. And then you keep on, you keep on, you keep on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the flip side of that is what you said about, like, when something is hard, you're persevering, which is one of our school values, is perseverance.
Exactly.
And like persevering and recognizing that, is this really, like, how bad do I want this? And how much work am I willing to put in to make this happen? And a lot of times I think we also forget that it's not just you, right? You mentioned somebody who supported you in that journey.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm curious to like talk a little bit more about that, like, and then maybe like add some, are there educators in your journey, from young to college to masters, that like were support for you, right? Because it's not just you that accomplished it. They were like a group of supports in that process, right?
No, for sure. My mother is the greatest person that I've ever known. She always told me, I can ingrain this into my head as a little kid, Josh, you don't try hard enough. And I go, you know what you're talking about? Like, I'm trying hard enough. And I just wasn't, right? I wasn't trying hard enough. And then when I finally started trying hard, here I am now. I can think back to high school. Mr. Burbank was just he was my science teacher. And it was just a really good friendship that kind of just developed out of that over time. Him always just taking the time just to talk to me and to listen to me and to just like encouraging me to keep going. My basketball coach taught me how to set goals. I used to have a really bad attitude, and he made the smart decision in kicking me off the basketball team, and then told me I had to reach certain goals, in which I was able to. And so if I didn't have that, I wouldn't know how to make goals currently. I think of Beverly Selga, who hired me at the hospital, and allowed me to be an 18-year-old working with surgeons, right? I worked in the operating room. I cleaned up the ORs after procedures. Wasn't anything crazy like that. I was very much like not in the rooms, but I was able to be around, people who our society deems, of great value because they've obtained a certain status. But yeah, just be able to be around excellence across the board each and every day really just helped me to know that I can go out there, and work hard. Think of, a professor from the UW, Kathleen Fernbanks. I saw her the other day when I was in the U Village, and just like, she's a Black woman from DC, grew up during the civil rights era, and just really invested in me. And, when I moved to Atlanta, she told me, me and my husband are passing the torch to you, and we expect you to go out there and do great things. And just to know that, there's all these amazing people in my life just encouraging me. And then, just there's a lot of people. It takes a village to raise somebody. And so I'm grateful for the people that have taken the time to invest in me and to just, encourage me over the years. But yeah, without my mom and her sacrifices, there's no way I would be here with you all. It is just absolutely not. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Josh. Thank you. Like, I think like there are a lot of adults and every, around us, and scholars have us here, who are our middle schoolers and high schoolers who are here to support, right? And it's important to know that they're not alone in any of this, in any of their challenges, in any of the things that you're struggling with, right?
Yeah.
There are people around you who you can talk to and see if they have an idea, right? See if they
Absolutely.
can maybe even talking out loud with them
Yeah.
might like help
Absolutely.
you think through what to
Yes.
do, right? Because it's
Absolutely.
a human journey to
Yeah.
struggle and
Yeah.
to things to be difficult. No one like just smoothly goes through life and
Yeah.
and not have any challenges, but also
Agreed.
remembering important, right, to have people around you who can
Yeah.
help you through that journey.
Definitely. And I to piggyback off of that is like people don't know what you don't tell them, right? If you are struggling, you don't have to struggle alone. Like my last semester in grad school was very challenging. And eventually I had to, like you were saying, is just advocate for myself and let my supervisor and professors know that like this is a really hard time for a lot of different reasons. And they were so helpful. So I would encourage, every scholar, if you are, having tough times at times, reach out to your teachers, your counselors, and just let them know everybody's here to help you and wants to do all that they can to help you to continue to succeed and listen to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh. And now we also have you as part of the RVLA community
Yeah. Oh
officially
yeah,
now
please. Yeah, please.
connected.
Yeah,
And I know like
absolutely.
there are scholars who are interested in the arts,
Yeah.
scholars interested in social justice work.
Yeah.
And we always want to also have other folks outside of the school that you can
Yeah.
connect with. So
Absolutely. Would love
Josh
to.
is now another person
Yeah,
in that
definitely.
network.
Please. Please.
And if you are interested in contacting him, just let me know, just the scholars, and then I definitely can connect you with Josh.
Yeah.
Speaking of struggles, I want to ask you about just kind of as a global majority person, what's been your experience with racism, and like how did you navigate those experiences you've had with racism? Because most of our scholars are global majority scholars and
Yeah.
have experiences, and like important to hear from adults
Yeah.
about like how they navigate those experiences.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm biracial, but I'm Black. In the summer, I get a lot darker. Um, and I was with my father, and we went to the African American Museum in DC. I've been a few times, and if y'all ever had the chance to go to DC, I highly recommend going to that museum. And while we were there, we went over to the Lovings verdicts. And for those that don't know, the Lovings were a interracial couple that lived in Virginia. And at that time in Virginia, when they were having kids, it was illegal to have children that looked like me. And so, Trevor Noah wrote a book called Born a Crime. And without that verdict, I was born in Virginia, would have been born a crime. And so I was born in 1989. My dad was born in 1947. He grew up in the Jim Crow South. He's seen friends of his that were beat, killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And so historically, to be Black in this country is to be, to know racism, right? And so I say all of that because my history is born out of, racist actions that others have put onto people who look like me. And that really came to the surface when I was living in Atlanta. Atlanta's another world. And, you hear stories about in the 70s, 60s, even in the 80s, how, things were segregated and how Black people couldn't go here or there. And I say all of that because when a friend of mine, we were driving from Atlanta to Chattanooga. And when you drive, I believe that's 75 or 85 north, there's a massive Confederate flag on the side of the road. Like racism hasn't gone away. It's different. It's more subtle here in the Pacific Northwest, but it's alive and well in the Deep South. My friend who happens to be white asked me to pull over so we can go to the bathroom. And we went to the bathroom. He went to the bathroom. I sat in the car. I was like texting somebody, and when he came out, I was gonna like go inside. And he told me, he's like, man, you can't go in there. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't think they'll let you go in there. Right. And so that's the instance where it's I could have like tried to go inside and, you know, just said, no, I'm going to go and challenge them. But sometimes it's best just not to, depending upon the context that you're in. The Pacific Northwest is different than the Deep South when it comes to racism and what I've experienced. I'm not going to go ahead and say like an umbrella statement because I don't know. I'm not every minoritized person here, but just the historical context and just the Deep South. I mean, you drive from Atlanta to Savannah and you see the cotton fields and you know who, you know, was working those fields. You just drive up and down the Eastern Seaboard and it's just deeply rooted, and you see how racist actions have still, you know, oppressed people across the board, but especially in Atlanta. And it was just so telling how a society is still influenced by institutional racism across the board. So knowing all of that, I think the biggest thing is to stand up for what you believe in. And sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, right? I'm not saying to go out there and to cuss somebody out or anything of that nature. I absolutely believe in standing up for what you believe in and to take a stand and to be firm in that and to not waver. And so if you see something that you deem racist, and if that isn't okay with you, say something. Don't be silent, right? You can't be silent. You can be silent, but we know what that leads to. You know, we need more people to speak up and to be heard and to not be afraid, you know, because that's how change happens. If we get a lot of change agents and people speaking their truth and advocating for all of us, then we can get more people in the know, you know, and to know that, you know, their actions are harmful. So to be minoritized, to be part of a globally oppressed community is a responsibility on us, I would say, and there's beauty in that, to challenge, to push back, and to say that this isn't okay for you to treat me like that, you know, and to break down stereotypes and to normalize certain instances and occasions. That's kind of a lot, so I'll go ahead and
No, it's
pause.
okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Josh. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing, and could resonate
Yeah.
with a lot of what you said. I am curious to kind of go back a little bit to that moment with your friend and the choice you made about like you staying in the car and not using the restroom. I'm curious, like, you know, it sounds like to me that you made a choice to keep yourself safe, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there are moments like that where you might be in a place where there's like a lack of safety involved,
Yeah.
and you might make the choice to not engage because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
physically or emotionally, whatever it might be, feeling
Yeah.
really unsafe.
Yeah.
Looking back at that situation, like, what would you do? Like, do you feel like you would change anything about that moment, or would you do anything different?
I mean, I think I would have done the same. I don't think I would have. The thing about the South is like you're gonna know where you can't go. Like the racism is very blunt and in your face. I respect it for that. And I don't think it's worth it at times. If some people have hatred in their heart, you're not gonna change hatred, right? People aren't open, so be it. Yeah, I think I made the smart choice in not going in and engaging, because I know myself and I would have absolutely had a conversation with them, and who knows, right? Who knows if they would have been receptive? Who knows what language could have been used? Because there's certain words I absolutely will not stand for, and we'll take action if needed. And so I think it's best to know what outcomes can lead to, and to know when it's just better to be the bigger person and to just know it's not worth it. It's not your fight today. Let them be miserable, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh. I thought it was important to ask that question to just get scholars to hear, like, how do you navigate those small, like, micro moments where you're experiencing racism, right? Because it's happening all the time, and important to build your capacity and your skills
Absolutely.
to be able to navigate that. And you give some ideas about like, really speaking up when you do hear something like
Yeah,
that happening and not remaining silent and standing up
yeah,
for what you believe in and value, which is really
sure,
important. I have some questions now
sure.
from scholars that are here. They're a little on the light side. I
Oh,
know this
no
could be a
worries.
little heavy.
Totally
Maybe
fine.
I'm feeling like it's it's heavy, but it's
Yeah,
important nonetheless.
yeah.
Um, Nasir wanted to know, what do you do with your spare time? And like, what do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies?
Great question. I like hiking. I really enjoy getting into nature. I would say, yeah, I try to, well, when it's nice out, I try to go and hike as much as possible. I'm going to start snowshoeing, trying something new, something I've always wanted to do. So why not go and try that? I also like art. Like I probably said, I like going out to art museums and just, seeing different types of arts. I love to travel. I'm lucky enough to be able to go to Paris for the holidays. So I'll be flying out there. So that'll be a really good time. But yeah, I would say nature, art, and travel are definitely three of my biggest hobbies.
Awesome. Is there a place that you went hiking that you're like close by, not too far, that you
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah. I
recommend?
mean, yeah, yeah. There's Mount Si, which is in North Bend. No, yeah, North Bend. That's not that far. I do a lot of hikes up along the I-90 corridor. So all in through there, there's really good trails that I like to go and do. Probably one of the more cooler ones, if you want to look up, it's called High Box, and that's out in Easton. So a little bit on just once you get over the pass going over 90, it's just take a left and drive into the woods for a while. And it's probably the most challenging but yet most beautiful hike because it just helps me get back to nature. It's only me and my friend, and like we were climbing elevation and just seeing all, these birds of prey and this random little I don't know what running around. It's really cool. It's really really beautiful just to get out and get away from the city at times.
That's awesome. Thank you, Josh. High Box. Okay. I've
So
heard
High
of
Box
Mount Si.
Mountain. Yeah, High
High
Box.
Box Mountain. I gotta
Yeah,
try and
High Box
remember that.
Mountain. But then
I try
Mount,
to go
yeah,
hiking too.
yeah, yeah. And Mount Si isn't too bad. And yeah, I think it's pretty doable.
Cool. I've heard of Mount Si. So High Box,
Yeah,
taking notes.
yeah,
Check it
yeah,
out
yeah.
one time when the weather maybe isn't
Yeah,
isn't so bad.
for sure.
And Zainab wants to know, what's your favorite thing about getting your associate degree? And if there wasn't one, what's your favorite pastime?
My favorite thing about my associate degree was honestly
Mm.
just that journey. It was such a struggle, like I was kind of alluding to earlier. I didn't really know what was going to happen afterwards, and it's just cool to be able to look back and see, what that foundation provided for me and how that's gotten me to where I'm at. And then with regard to like pastimes, I spoke to that a little bit ago, but also enjoy college basketball. I'm a huge Gonzaga fan, so right now basketball season. Like to watch that, and then UW football got a new coach. Hopefully, we can turn it around. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Huskies. I don't know what's going
yeah.
on lately.
That was
I
rough.
don't follow, but I've been seeing some things.
Yeah, that was rough. Rough season. Rough
The rough
season.
season. That the Seahawks are also having a rough season.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I don't know. The Sounders were eliminated.
Yeah.
Anyways, not to go off too much on the sport trend.
No
Um,
worries.
there's a question from Lily. It says, "What's your favorite food?"
Oh
And
wow.
Harris says ramen noodles.
Ooh, ramen noodles
She
are
wants you to
great.
know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
those are really good. Yeah, I like ramen. Yeah, there's a great ramen out in this part of the country for sure. So I would say my favorite, based upon just travels and being different places, I would say hardest food for me to find when I'm abroad is like Mexican food. So I'll probably say like tacos are my favorite. That's what I crave the most when I've been gone for long stretches. I'd say you kind of can find just about any other types of food, but good Mexican food is pretty hard to find throughout the world.
Awesome. Lily said nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Like
Thank you.
tacos, I think too, maybe.
Yeah, tacos. Love tacos. Can't go wrong
I
with
like
that.
I like tacos too. I think it
Yeah,
depends where it's made though, right? Where you
absolutely.
get it from.
Yeah,
There've been
yeah,
places you like, ugh.
yeah,
But
yeah.
thank you, Josh. I appreciate you. It is incredibly an honor to have you join us today and make time. I want to make sure that if there's anything else you want to say before we close, it is, yeah, just want to open it up to you.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about or just speak on real quickly is that when I graduated high school at a 2.7 GPA, I didn't apply to college. I ended up going to a Skagit Valley College for a quarter. And then, just more or less dropped out. And I alluded to, I then went to Edmonds Community College. I graduated with a 3.2, graduated from the UW with a 3.12. And then just recently from Emory, I graduated with a 3.8. And so I say that to say this, that I'm somebody who was on an IEP, graduated high school with a 2.7 and finished my educational journey with a degree from Emory. Emory is a pretty good institution. And I succeeded. So just know that you can achieve anything. I'm a product of this immense belief in myself. And I encourage you all to continue to develop those skills and to know that possible is anything, like truly. It's just a matter of how bad do you want it, and you can go out there and get it. And yeah, feel free to reach out and let me know how I can best help you and assist you. I'm currently developing a summer hiking program and want to work with BIPOC community teenage students. So as that continues to unfold, I'll definitely, work with your staff potentially to see if that's something that students might want to engage in and get out and just be with nature. So I think there's a lot to be said about just going and getting into the woods and enjoying that.
Absolutely. Right. The nature is for everybody. Everybody deserves some time connecting with nature, spending time outside of the city, because it renews your well-being, your emotional, mental well-being to connect with nature. And you don't know until you try it, right? So exactly. I appreciate you saying that. I think that's dope. Stay connected and let us know, because I'm sure there's some scholars who might be interested in that. So thank you, Josh. Again, we appreciate you, and stay connected. And everybody else, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you,
Take care, Josh.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.